my number one regret with coming to George Mason is coming here. And I started to peep that a lot of the things that I tried to get away from in high school carried on to college. People, like, I was pretty much the only black person in my classes, and I'm like, this don't look right. Like, for this to be the most diverse campus in Virginia, it doesn't look like it. Man, maybe, you know, maybe I should have went to a HBCU. Hey everybody, it's Bree. Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another video. So this video is a George Mason video. I have not done one of these in a cool hot minute, but I figured that I would talk about a couple of things, especially with me graduating now. I have so many things to talk about and reflect on, and so I'm going to be getting into some of those reflections in a minute, and I'm also going to be dropping a video, a little teaser. I'm going to be dropping a video about me having COVID, actually. So I was actually one of the first people to catch COVID at George Mason, and I have so much to talk about in regards to that whole situation, because it was literally one of the worst experiences for me, and it honestly just solidified why I more than likely will not be coming here again. And so stay tuned for that video, because that video will probably be like an hour long, but it's literally filled with like juicy details. So get prepared for that video. But yeah, so this video, again, just in me reflecting, I kind of wanted to get into some of my regrets with coming to George Mason, either regrets with coming here or regrets that I have that I didn't necessarily, like, things that I regret not doing while I've been here, but also regrets that I have with coming here. Because honestly, and literally, this has come from like everybody that I've talked to, everybody that I've met and been friends with. Whenever the conversation comes up about George Mason, almost everyone has the same consensus that, like, when you first come here, right? Like I feel like everybody has the same notion that they were kind of like scammed or bamboozled into this dream that George Mason paints, and then when you get here, it's like, what in the world? What is this? And it's like so many people, end up transferring, or they don't do the full 4 years here because they realize like they were sold a dream, and it's just not what you were expecting. And that's pretty much what I've gotten from everybody, that George Mason ended up not being what they expected. And I can definitely say that for myself. Like, when I first chose to come to George Mason, I was so excited. Like, I remember, like, I used to just like spend like time looking at the website and the Instagrams, and like I was so like in awe of the school, and I was like, this is my home, like this is where I'm meant to be, this is going to be like the best experience ever, this is like the best school ever. Boy, my first semester here, I was like, okay, I've been bamboozled. And so again, just with that and just reflecting, I kind of just wanted to go into some of the things that, some of my biggest regrets. And so I will be going through my top 10 biggest regrets in regards to George Mason. My number one regret with coming to George Mason is coming here. Um, you know, I get it, like, I don't, even though I've had a lot of ups and downs, many more downs, I would say. I will say that obviously the experiences that I've had have made me who I am today, and have taught me a whole lot. And so I don't know if I can say like I wish I went to a different school, but on the lowest of keys, I kind of wish I went to a different school. Like, I always think about, like, if I would have went to literally any other school, how much better my experience may have been, just based on a variety of stuff, and so many things that I just didn't know coming into it, like, which was crazy to me, right? Because I kept talking about this. I kept talking about me wanting to go to George Mason. George Mason was like always up there, like one of my top schools, mostly because of the major that I had initially chosen, which was game design. As far as I knew, George Mason was the only school in Virginia that offered a game design program. And so, I was sold, and everybody was like everybody also felt confident that George Mason was like a good fit for me. So I'm like, okay, cool, bet. As soon as I put the deposit down and I decided to go to that school, I started getting so much like negative feedback about my choice. Mostly because I've always expressed like, why I wanted to go to college. Like back when I was in high school, like my main thing with coming to college was that, I wanted to make more friends. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to have more experiences. Like I just wanted that college lifestyle. I just wanted to meet better people because, like, again, like my time at home and throughout high school and middle school just was not fun for me, and I just was ready to just get away from all of that and start new and start fresh. And from what I had experienced so far, when I came to visit George Mason and everything like that, it seemed like the environment was cool, the people were cool, and I was really optimistic about it. But a lot of people were like, yeah, no, you don't know what you just signed up for. Like people were telling me how George Mason is mostly a commuter school, meaning that not a lot of people like stay on campus. Like a lot of people just take their classes and dip, which makes the campus very dead. Which I'll get into that later on as well. But also the fact that I'm in Northern Virginia, right? Like because my main thing, right, was that the people that I went to school with were not the nicest to me, and so I really wanted to get away from that. And people were like, "Well, you have a rude awakening because people in Northern Virginia are so rude, so disrespectful." And yeah, like literally a couple weeks in, I could peep that. Like people didn't hold the door for you. And even now, like I'll notice like people have a hard time saying like thank you, like literally just like basic like common courtesy, like manners is like not a thing up here, and that wasn't something that I was used to. And it's like, with me like dealing with stuff that I dealt with at home, I'm like there's no way that you know people can be even more mean than this. But no, I'm like, well dang, at least back at home we got like a little bit of southern hospitality, but up here, man, it's like a dog eat dog world. Like no one wants to help you out with anything. Like you have, like basically like you have to fend for yourself. That's what it feels like. It feels like when you're in Northern Virginia, like people don't really, not a lot. Like it's very rare, but for the most part, it's like you have to like make it on your own, do for yourself, like look out for yourself. Like people don't really look to like help you out here, and that's not something that I was expecting at all, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Um, and so that was just always one thing where I'm like, man, I wonder if I would have went literally anywhere else. Because that's another thing too. It's like I turned down so many schools. Like if y'all were following me back then, which I mean y'all wouldn't have because I wasn't on YouTube then. But anybody who knows me knows that like, or anybody who knew me in high school knows that I was getting like tons of acceptance letters from schools. I had like 15 different acceptance letters, and I stupidly, no disrespect, and I already know I'm going, even though you can't see the dislikes anymore, I know I'm going to get a ton of dislikes because every single time I put George Mason or GMU in the title of any of my videos, I immediately get dislikes. And I already know it's from some diehard patriot or some Mason employee that can't handle the truth and doesn't want anyone saying anything negative about George Mason, and then they come leaving hate on the video. But I'm gonna say how I feel because I know a lot of people agree with me. Um, but yeah, like I turned down so many acceptance letters, so much money. Like literally out of everybody, with the exception of James Madison, which literally gave me $0, George Mason didn't really give me anything. I had received a scholarship from the game design program itself, but receiving money from George Mason, I didn't get a whole lot. I may have gotten a grant, but I don't remember if I did or not. But in terms of like actual like scholarship money, I didn't get anything from George Mason. And so I turned down so so like y'all would be mad to find out like some of the offers that I turned down. Like a lot of the schools that I applied to, like I would have been like set at least for a year. Especially if I went to community college. Like I literally could have went to community college for free, but I honestly didn't feel like community college was for me. And so yeah. So moving into the next point. Another regret that I have with coming to George Mason is not learning public transit. Obviously with being in the city, public transit runs a lot of that. It's really easy to get around if you learn how to do like the metro, Amtrak, the bus. Like if you just learn how to use that, it actually is really easy to get around. And unfortunately, in my time here, I did not learn how to do that stuff. Whenever I did ride the bus or get on the metro, it was always like a once in a while. Not even once in a while. Yeah, I've only been on the metro 2 times. I want to say I've been on the metro 2 times. And it wasn't ever really like the first time was like several years ago, and then the second time was like last year. I have not had a whole lot of experience with the metro either, and I've gotten into like arguments with people about this, but my whole thing was I didn't want to learn it on my own, and I didn't feel like I should have to learn it on my own. Especially because like in situations like that, like if you don't know what you're doing or where you're going, it can be very dangerous, and I really didn't want to get lost. And so I'm like, well, let me get comfortable with doing it with other people, so then that way when I do it on my own, I have some experience. I'm not like completely in the dark. But the problem was I couldn't find anybody that was like willing to like, teach me. It was always like this, again, once in a blue moon type deal. And whenever I would bring up the idea or bring up, hey, like I want to learn this, like can you come with me here? Can we do this? Um, it was always an excuse. And typically in the past, it was because those people had cars. So they're just like, why would I get on like a dirty metro when I can just ride in my car? And I'm like, that's cool and all, but I also don't want to solely rely on you and your car, because clearly when I need to go places or when I want to go places, you don't always want to take me. And I'm tired of feeling like a burden. So I'm like, let me take things into my own hands and learn how to get around on my own. But also, I can't really learn how to, and because that can be a whole nother video in itself, the whole metro conversation, because I've had so many people, you know, talk about how easy it is and how I just need to go ahead and just do it, and how once you learn it, like it's so easy. But literally every time I ask them, well, hey, did you learn the metro on your own and by yourself? The answer is always no. They either had a friend, a family member that helped them to learn it, or they started writing it when they were like young, like elementary school, middle school, and again, they were with family members. And so by the time they got to college, they already were familiar with it. I had zero knowledge of it. I had no idea how it worked, didn't know what signs meant what. Like I had no clue what anything was. And for you to expect me to go into a metro station not knowing anything about it and expecting me to successfully get to point A to point B without getting lost, I just feel like that's not fair. And I also don't feel like I should have to. Like, I have all these people around me that know how to do this. Why are y'all like trying to push me out to the wolves and be like, oh, figure it out on your own? Why? You didn't have to. You didn't have to figure it out on your own. Why can't you help me out? And so even though I don't feel like it's my fault necessarily, I do regret the fact that I'm like leaving college now. And this whole time I've been near a metro station, I've been near DC. And that's another thing too. I've only been to DC like twice. Yeah, been to DC twice. the 2 times I went on the metro, that it was to go to DC. And yeah, I still don't know how it works, and it sucks because I did really want to learn. I did really want to like figure it out for my own, but I just did not feel comfortable trying to learn it on my own and having no idea what to do, where to go, not even knowing where the entrance to the metro. But like, I just didn't feel comfortable doing that, regardless of how easy it is or whatever. I just would have liked to have had help with that. Same thing with getting on the train. Like, people saying like, "Oh, it's so easy. Like, you just do this, do that." Like, and it's like, again, like, I don't want to have that experience for the first time ever by myself, because I'm going to get flustered, I'm going to get anxious, and I'm not going to know what to do. I need to see someone else do it, so that way I know how to do it. I don't want to go into a situation like that for the first time by myself. Like, that's no. And so I'm not gonna lie, that is a big regret that I do have. I regret not getting involved in clubs earlier. Granted, I didn't go too long without getting involved in any clubs, but I remember like my freshman year, it was kind of hard for me to like get out of my shell and to like go to events and stuff like that. And so I was like a part of clubs, but like I never went to the meetings. I didn't take those opportunities to really get to know people, because I just, my social anxiety was just off the roof. Especially when I first came here. When I first came here, like, I was scared to death to do anything, to talk to people, to like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, people say what they want, but I've experienced so much growth in being here in the past like 4 years. I've experienced so much growth, and I've really have become way more independent than I first was. Because again, like, I'm coming from a small town. I don't have a lot of experience doing stuff for myself. Like, even ordering food, I didn't start ordering food for myself until I got to college. And so the idea of, going in line at Steak and Shake, telling them what I wanted, that was a new experience for me. Some people have been doing that since they was in middle school, but stuff like everything was just overwhelming. Like, being on my own was very overwhelming. Now, it was still something that I wanted, and it was still something that I pushed through, because I wanted that independence and I wanted that growth. But it was still very overwhelming. And so the same thing goes for like being in clubs and stuff. Like, there were clubs that I literally paid the fee to be a member, and I didn't go to any of the meetings. But around I will say, I think second semester of my freshman year, but definitely by sophomore year. Sophomore year for sure. Sophomore year and junior year was when I got into a lot more clubs that were geared towards my interests. And that literally is where I met some of my friends that I still have today. Like, a lot of the people that I still talk to and keep in contact with, a lot of those people were met through clubs. That was my main way of meeting people and like maintaining friendships through Mason. And so I do wish that I would have gotten involved a little bit earlier, even with clubs like, BSA. Like, I never heavily got into that, and I kind of wish I did. And just, yeah, different stuff like that. Another regret that I have is not utilizing the campus to promote my business ventures. As I said before, I suffer with anxiety a lot, especially social anxiety, and a lot of stuff, scares me and terrifies me. And there were so many opportunities to get my business out there, outside of social media, and I just didn't have the guts to do it. Like, I'll be completely honest. Like, even when it came down to like tabling events, like opportunities to like actually promote my business in front of people at events and stuff like that, I just never worked up the courage to do it, or even utilizing, because there's literally something on campus too where you can like get help with like your entrepreneurial projects and stuff like that. Never utilized that. There was like a few opportunities, or just like, I don't know, even like when it came to like my clothing line and stuff like that, like utilizing people on campus, like getting people to model stuff on campus. Like there just were so many, or even like taking pictures like on campus. Like I'm doing that now in my last semester, but I kind of wish I would have utilized that a little bit more. Let's see. Another regret that I have is not putting forth the effort to meet people that I met virtually in person. And this is even like before COVID, right? I feel like there's this unspoken rule that because, like the black community is small at Mason, right? And so when I was coming in, right, it was like, if you were black and you went to Mason, we cool. Like it was just automatically assumed like we cool, we good, like, and so it was always like this unspoken thing where it's like, okay, if I come across your Instagram and you got, GMU 22 or GMU 23, I'm gonna follow you, you'll follow me. And I've met a lot of people through social media. Like there's a lot of people that I'm cool with through like Instagram and Twitter. Like people that you'll like constantly like talk to, or you'll comment on each other's stuff, or you'll reply to each other's stories. Like people that I'm like on a pretty like cordial basis through social media. And I do wish I would have taken the time to build up those friendships with people in person. And again, I think part of it was just a lot of shyness on my part, because there definitely probably was like events or opportunities that I could have had to like meet these people in person. But yeah, like it just kind of sucks because like I've met so many people, and I feel like there was a lot of potential for friendships there, but I didn't really capitalize on that during my time here, and so that is something that I definitely regret. Another regret that I have, that I feel like a lot of people have the same regret no matter what school you go to, or like I feel like this is a regret that many people have, which is that I didn't change my major sooner than I did. That it definitely is a regret that I have. Granted, I am thankful that I still get to graduate on time. But it definitely wasn't an easy thing. It definitely required me to take back to back summer classes to catch up. It's just that thing of like, because when I came to George Mason, I was set up to graduate early. Like I had taken so many like dual enrollment classes, AP classes, like I was stacked up with credits. And I was ready to graduate early. Like that was the plan. um, and luckily, all those credits gave me enough of a cushion to where, in the event that I change my major or I fail a couple classes, like it won't hurt me too bad and it won't set me back too bad. Um, but yeah, part of me does wish that I would have picked my major earlier than I did, especially just because, like, looking back, I definitely overlooked a pretty obvious passion that I had. Because if you guys don't know, I am majoring in marketing, which is obviously a business degree. And when I first came to Mason, like I did video game design, right? Because, I still love video games. The idea of creating my own games or having my own gaming company was very intriguing to me. And I'm like, well, I love video games. I grew up off of video games. So, this seems like the lane for me. And, in my time in being a game design major, I just really was not happy. And it was hard because, like, I didn't know if it was because of the major or because of everything happening at that time. Um, but I will say, too, like, my focus was on the money. Because I just wanted to make sure I was set up to where I would be guaranteed, like, a good salary out of college. And so I also low key, like, part of what swayed me away from game design was that game design is so niched, and I figured that the only way I would get a job through game design is to work for video game companies. And the only major ones that I knew of were like not in Virginia, right? Like they were in like California, Florida, Canada. The only one that was really like locally available was Bethesda in Maryland. That was the only gaming company that was really in the area that I knew of at the time. And so I'm like, well, I don't really want to move out of state quite yet, but I'm not going to have a choice if I stick with this major. And so, in me thinking about the potential job opportunities being kind of niched, and then also thinking about like the money and being guaranteed something too, my mind started to cross. My mind started to think about IT, information technology, because I when I was in high school, I initially thought about being a computer science major, and so basically, if I didn't do game design, I was going to do computer science because every other school that I applied to, I picked computer science as my major. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to do computer science because that's a lot. That's a lot of coding. That's a lot of math. That's a lot of stuff that I don't want to do. But IT kind of had like a sweet spot where it wasn't too much of that, like not as much as computer science. And I was like, well, with IT, it still kind of has like a little businessy stuff in it. Doesn't look like it'll be too bad, and people in IT make a lot of money. Like that was like my mindset with that. I'm like, in IT they make a whole lot of money, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try IT. Man, I got bored very very fast with IT. And again, it was like the whole thing of like, okay, well, do I kind of stick in it to see if there will come a point in time where I'll like it. Like maybe these are the boring classes that I got to get out the way. So let me go into these other classes. But I just I was not feeling it, and I also wasn't doing well. Like that was one of the worst semesters that I had academically. Um, and so I was like, nah, not gonna do it. And then marketing had came to mind. Cause also too, right, like again, anyone that's known me for a long time knows that I've always been into business. I've always had a interest in business and being an entrepreneur literally since I was like in elementary school. And I remember when picking my major and picking what college I wanted to go to, everybody was like, why aren't you majoring in business? Like that was like the number one question that I got a lot was, why aren't you majoring in business? Like it makes sense. And my answer to them always would be, well, I don't need a business degree to have a business. And so my mindset was, let me get a degree in something for the sake of securing money and a job, and then I'll have my passion to the side. I didn't really want to, and I don't know why, but I don't know, I just didn't think to combine that with what I was going to school for. Because like again, like that was just my mindset. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be running my own business and like that's my thing, I don't need a degree in that. That's why I just kept thinking. So I'm like, I'm not really going to do that. Um, but then like the more I thought about it and the more that I started like I actually started like reading descriptions of like business classes. And as I was reading the descriptions, I'm like, oh, like this stuff actually interests me. Like this is actually something that I could like see myself doing. And then I kind of had like a duh moment where I'm like, well, obviously this is the degree that I need to be in. Obviously, like being in the business field is for me. It's literally been for me since day one. Why not just go ahead and go for it? And so, and thankfully, when I did make that switch to becoming a marketing major, as far as like my academic life goes, everything changed for the better. My grades were significantly better. I was actually enjoying the stuff that I was learning, and that's when I knew that I picked the right major. Especially because, like looking back, all of my marketing classes straight A's. Like when it comes to my major GPA, literally like almost a 4.0. Like literally like the class that I just got done with A plus. Like, and it's a marketing class. Like that's how I knew I was in the right place. and I was in a field that I belonged in because I was excelling in it and I was enjoying it. And I low key wish I would have just went straight for my passion and not used the excuse of you don't need a business degree to do business. Because even too, like with marketing, because marketing for me was like the best of both worlds because I enjoy being creative and I also enjoy business, and marketing was able to like bring those two things together. And I'm, looking back, I'm just like, God, I'm such a idiot. But it's okay. Like you live and you learn. So the next regret that I have is not taking advantage of some of the resources that are here. As far as like career services, like I didn't really utilize career services a lot. They offered so many free headshot workshops that you could have went to. I didn't go to any of them. Or like resume workshops. I went to resume workshops before, but not through Mason. And so that's a thing. I didn't go to tutoring for any classes. I did go to CAPS one time, and it was the last time I went to CAPS. And a lot of people that I've talked to who have been to CAPS and utilized their services would say the same thing. CAPS just it wasn't beneficial for me. It was not a good experience for me, and so I have not been back since. But yeah, I do regret not using some of the free resources that are on campus. Another thing, a big thing actually, that I regret about my time here is I regret, or I wish I would have came in with different expectations, and that has been something that has that I have been thinking about a lot, especially with where I currently am. Um, like where I expected my life to be and what it actually ended up being, it was really hard. It was a hard adjustment. It was a hard thing to deal with. And honestly, I could make a video about that too. Just about how like my life, what I expected out of my life was very different from what I was given, or what I experienced up until this point. And honestly, I had like what I like to call like the Disney Channel treatment, where I came into college thinking that it was gonna be like, just rainbows and unicorns. Like I just was gonna make all these friends, and I was gonna start getting attention from boys, and we was gonna be out having a good time every weekend, and I was gonna have the time of my life all the time, 24/7. That's what I thought, and it just ended up not being that at all. And I started to peep that a lot of the things that I tried to get away from in high school carried on to college. Like there are people in college that do a lot of high school stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in high school that also happens in college and happens in adult life. In terms of like cliques or people being messy, or just whatever the case may be. And I just had so much high expectations because again, like I went through such a hard time in high school. I'm like, this got to be it. Like this got to be the end all be all. All that suffering that I had, is going to lead up to an amazing time in college. And so when that didn't happen, I'm like, so what was all this bull crap for that I went through? Because it's just been nothing but bull crap. And I even feel like that now. I'm like, there's so many things that I was expecting where now it's like, oh, like this isn't. And I don't know. I wasn't prepared. Like I just wasn't prepared for real life, I guess. Like I wasn't prepared for a lot of that stuff to like happen. And so when it did, I just didn't know how to handle it because I'm like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I was expecting. Like I was supposed to have all these friends, and I was supposed to be, hanging out with them every weekend, and everything was just supposed to be fine and great. And not to say that I wasn't expecting like hard moments, but I really wasn't expecting a lot of, what had happened or what had occurred. And it really hit me like a ton of bricks. And so I do wish I had a more realistic um, expectation of what college was going to be and the struggles of college, or even like, like being broke and going hungry. Like, I wish that I would have been more prepared and not expected some like fairy tale type of situation. Um, Another thing that I regret is I underestimated how George Mason being a quiet commuter school was actually going to hinder my college experience. As someone that is naturally quiet, and as someone that doesn't like to party, as someone that doesn't really like being too social, like I'm a homebody. I don't really like to go out like that. I don't really like to socialize like that. I knew George Mason was a quiet school. I had read all the reviews online, like the real reviews online. I had read stuff about George Mason. I knew going into George Mason that it was a quiet commuter school. That was actually one of my reasons for picking it. Um, like I didn't pick James Madison because I knew that James Madison was a party school, and I just didn't want to be in that type of environment. But I'm like, George Mason, like it's nice and quiet. You know, I'm expecting it to be like full of like homebodies like me, full of nerds. You know, but I wasn't expecting the campus to be as dead as it was. And in the beginning, it didn't bother me too much, but after a while, I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to like enjoy my time here. I want to be out. I want to go places. I want to enjoy my time. Like, and it just sucks that like having a fun weekend at George Mason is like not even heard of. Like like nothing really goes on. Nothing really happens. You have the occasional events. Um, like in the beginning of the semester, you have like welcome back events, where George Mason will hold stuff, mostly for the freshmen though. But you'll have that. Some organizations will hold stuff in the beginning of the semester, and then you might have the occasional Halloween event. You might have like the Friendsgivings. You might have a Christmas thing going on, but with finals happening, a lot of the times those things get canceled. And then in the springtime, it's pretty much dead until it gets warm outside, which is like April, May. And so there just isn't a whole lot happening on campus, and there's a lot of moments where it's just like dead. And again, I didn't think that something like that was gonna bother me, but there were definitely moments where I'm like, okay, this is like I'm actually bored. And it sucks when you can't get off of campus and you like live on campus because you're like, okay, I'm trying to do something this Friday night, not necessarily a party, but something. And it's like there's literally nothing going on. And also the school spirit is dead. Um, when I first came here, I had a lot of school spirit. Like I was really, really excited to be here. I was excited to be a patriot. Like I was really, really excited to the point where during my orientation, when they taught us the chant that you do at like the basketball games, I literally learned it that day. And I was really, really excited to like go to a basketball game and do the chant. Literally everybody around me was sitting down, not even smiling, dead silent. Like there was no school spirit. And I was so crushed because like I was one of those ones that like wanted to go to the basketball game and do the cheer, and like I literally like I was like the only one that even had the chant memorized. And that's when I realized like, okay, school spirit is dead here. The environment is dead. And I think I definitely underestimated me wanting a quiet campus because it's just there is such thing as too quiet. And again, even though I'm not a part of the like party scene, I still wanted like something, and I just wasn't expecting it to be like that bad. So that is one thing that I regret. Um, and then the last thing, The last like regret that I have is, and this one gets a little deep. Um, Not understanding the importance of having a solid community of Black people. And I'm not saying it's not existent. I'm just saying I had a hard time finding that here. Part of why I chose to come to one of the most diverse schools in Virginia was because when I was like in high school, middle school, or whatever, I didn't really have any interest in going to a HBCU. I really didn't, because I honestly felt like I had like that identity crisis where it was like I was too Black for the white kids and I was too white for the Black kids, and I just felt like I didn't belong. And so I was afraid that if I went to a HBCU, that it was just going to be full of Black people that didn't accept me, or I just would feel like I'm just not where I should be, or that I don't fit in. I honestly felt like I was not going to fit in at an HBCU. And so that's why I chose to go to a school that was diverse. Yes, it's a PWI, but the way it's advertised, there are people of all ethnicities, there's all types of people here. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm bound to find people that I can connect to and resonate with. But literally, as the years went on, especially in my, well, junior year was a little weird because like COVID, but literally as the years went on, I found myself wanting to find more Black people and connect with more Black people. Like, I found myself like actively looking for any Black person that I could like talk to, connect with, just so I could feel more comfortable in these spaces. And because even like when I switched over to business, like I peeped, like I was pretty much the only Black person in my classes, and I'm like, this don't look right. Like, for this to be the most diverse campus in Virginia, it doesn't look like it. And so I'm like, okay, like, where are my people? Like, I started to have that feeling of like, where are my people? And that's why now looking back, I'm like, I kind of wish I would have valued that more, but I didn't know. Like, I didn't know until time went on and I started to experience being in spaces where, Black people weren't present. And then that's when I started to feel like out of place. And I'm like, and it literally wasn't until I started, going to like some of the Black events, or going to, or taking a class like African American Studies, or going to events like the Black Excellence Gala, where I feel a sense of inclusion, and I feel a sense of comfortability being around people that look like me. And I didn't understand the importance of that until I came here. Um, and so I'm not gonna lie, I do have moments where I'm like, man, you know, maybe I should have went to a HBCU. I'm not gonna lie, like I do have those moments where I'm like, man, I wish I would have went. And in the event that I change my mind and I decide to go get my master's, I might get my master's at a HBCU just so I can have somewhat of that experience. Because yeah, like it's been really hard trying to find people that I connect with and that I talk to, um, and let alone um, someone of color, or someone that's Black. And so looking back, I'm like, had I gone to a HBCU, um, I would have probably had the opportunity to find people like me. Like, when I say people like me, I mean someone that, again, like doesn't do the partying, um, someone that's like a homebody, someone that's nerdy, that's into like really nerdy stuff. I don't know. I just didn't know of a lot of Black people that were like that. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to go to a HBCU where I know that everyone's going to be partying and doing all that stuff that I'm just not into. And, I kind of just assumed that there weren't going to be a lot of people like me, and it was going to be really hard for me to find that. But it's been 10 times harder here. So I'm like, I probably would have had a way easier, um, probably would have had a way easier time finding people like that had I gone to a HBCU. And so that is something that I do think about from time to time. But hey, I'm about to graduate, so it is what it is. And honestly, that's how I feel about all these regrets. Even though I do have a few regrets, at the end of the day, I'm here now. I'm about to graduate. My time here is about to end. Thank God. Um, but yeah, a lot of reflecting that I've been doing the past couple years about, what I kind of wish I did, but everything happens for a reason, and it is what it is, and all we can do is, apply that to the future and, do better. So yeah. And yeah, so yeah, let me know if you, specifically if you're a George Mason student and you're watching this, and you've been here, whether it's been for a semester or you're about to graduate as well, or even if you're transferring here or you're coming back for your master's or your doctorate or whatever. Let me know if you have any regrets in terms of either picking George Mason as a school, or if you have any regrets of things that you did or didn't do while you were here. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video or agree with anything that I said, make sure you guys give it a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video.